Four experts. Can you guys join me? Right, 1, 2, 8. Inside, last chair for me. Oh, careful, right? Careful, careful. Oh, oops. Don't fall down. That's how you torture your vice chairman, no? Ask him to climb steps. The other side.
It's a robotic food, by the way.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so wait, you guys who has not attended any session yet? Okay, Prof. Lim. So you shall start last. It will be a lot easier. We do the same format. Introduce yourself. The topic we talk about it later. So maybe introduce yourself a lot better, right? I start from here. Vice Chairman last. Euan, Euan Kenworthy from Reynolds.
Thank you.
What else?
What else? I work in the Singapore office of Reynolds. Reynolds is a leading executive search firm globally. We've got 45 offices worldwide, and we focus on executive search at board, CEO, and executive committee level. We cross all industries, so I lead our industrial natural resources practice here, and also have a specialization in supply chain from a functional perspective. We also look at assessment, leadership assessment, and succession planning, again at sort of board and exco level as well.
So if Euan talk to you, or talk to me, what kind of salary am I looking at? Oh no, I'm kidding. Just for the fun of it.
Very high.
I'll be very happy then if you talk to me, right? Prof. Lim, more about yourself, Prof.
Thanks. My name is Lim Yuan Fong. I'm associate professor of operation management at SMU. I teach operation management, and in particular, I also have a class on warehousing and fulfillment. So it's a hardcore supporter for supply chain. And I did my PhD in industrial and system engineering from Georgia Tech about 10 years ago. And as you know, Georgia Tech is very strong in this logistic and supply chain research. So as a result, I kind of have no choice. I continue to do research in this area for many, many years. So if you guys are interested in getting some software or algorithms, some simple insights, you can talk to me, and you're welcome to interact with me.
Georgia Tech, just now there's an interviewee in the film. Do you see the video? Do you know him?
I don't know.
He's from GT. Okay,
I see. Okay. Anyway, yeah.
Welcome, Prof. Lim. Radu from Morgan Phillips.
Hi, my name is Radu. I'm from Morgan Phillips Executive Search. We are also an executive search firm with offices in 12 countries. The headquarters here for Asia Pacific is actually in Singapore, so we are proudly recruiting all over the Asia region from Singapore. My team focuses on supply chain and logistics as an industrial and functional focus. And obviously when Paul invited me to speak here, I was very keen to do a bit of research on the topic, because if more robots come to the workplace, then I'm not sure if we're going to have a job in the future. So it's always good to see what the future holds.
Okay, thank you. Last but not least, my vice chairman from Supply Chain Asia, Paul Bradley. More about yourself. Easier, right? He said he's Asian. You don't believe him, right? You're not Asian, right?
Anyways, Paul told me I should dress for the robotics theme today, so I did. I'm Paul Bradley, Chairman and CEO of Caprica International. Previously, I've been with APL NYK, ran several companies in Lee and Fong Group, set up integrated logistics and 4PL company in India, started 6 companies, 2 IPOs, but I'm spending a lot of time mentoring tech startups also right now. And it's a humbling experience, because we realize how many new ideas and how many new technologies are about to come up and shock us. But it also is a really exciting opportunity, so I think this is a great theme for the day.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Somebody just asked me, why don't I have ladies on board? Right. I need to have more ladies, right? It will spice up things, right? Maybe next time I have Spice Girls. We are looking at robots and the displacement of work, and this is, the video is actually about USA, but it's more a global phenomenon, right? You're seeing that robots is displacing people. The question I have is, will robots really eliminate some of our jobs and make our workers redundant? Is it going to happen, or is it happening? Yuan, you want to take a...
Yeah, it's going to happen, and it is happening. But then you look over history and you look at the increased automation within manufacturing, and it's been going on for quite some time. But I think that you've seen, or you are seeing, organizations investing much more heavily in robotics from a manufacturing perspective. And since 2008, there's 50% more spend on robotics around the world, including developing markets. And clearly that's going to have a major impact on unskilled labor, as we were looking at in the video. And as wage costs rise in developing markets, particularly where you've had outsourced manufacturing like China, organizations tend to look at robotics and investment in robotics when there's a 15% differential between the cost of a robot compared to the cost of an employee. And that's becoming increasingly prevalent as wage costs rise. So there's no doubt that unskilled labor is going to suffer, and therefore the onus is on organizations, it's on education to make sure that individuals have the skills to do different jobs and to adapt to the new reality.
Prof?
Sure. I just recently read about Lexus. They talk about, so one of the chief engineers of Lexus, responsible for the car body, the body of the car's production line. And he actually mentioned that if you are talking about automation, I think Toyota is one of the highly automated company, as compared to many manufacturers. So they have lots of robots helping them, to do the welding, alignment and so on, putting all the parts together. But, at the end of the day, they still pretty much rely on the human, rely on their, the craftsman, the so-called craftsman, to ensure that, to do the last finishing touch, and to ensure that, everything is in good shape. And so, by looking at this example, I think we can sort of understand that if you are looking at the basic tasks and some of the basic functions, repetitive stuff that you can program, you can ask computer to help you to do, I think probably those tasks can be covered by a robot. But if you are talking about those additional value that you're going to create, to increase quality of the product, then probably we still need to rely on a human a lot. I would say. So in their culture, basically they believe a lot in human. They actually train their workers from generation to generation. It's like a master training the students, and then the student will pass on to the next generation and so on. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Radu, your opinion?
Well, I was reading an interesting statistic by some Oxford brilliant professors, of course. I can't remember their names, but they were saying that in the next 20 years, 47% of the jobs will be automated or taken over. I don't exactly know if that is the scale. As you know, always with the statistics, there's different arguments on how you want to read it. But there is also the reality. Right now, let's just take Singapore for an example. There is a shortage, for example, in terms of warehousing. If we take specifically warehousing, if we take specifically logistics businesses, there's a shortage of blue-collar workers. There's a shortage of drivers. It's very basic skill set that are lacking on the market. So if you don't come up with a solution, that's why we see so much automation happening in the warehouses, also to compensate for the lack of actual people doing the jobs, because it's such a developed economy. So right now, I would argue that a lot of the jobs that are being taken, actually, people don't want to do. So you need to find a solution to keep your operations going. However, in the future, of course, if you look at robotics, if you look at Baxter, which is the robot which used to cost around $250,000 and now is costing around $40,000, $50,000 and can be reprogrammed, retrained. You are looking at the potential for a lot of the low-skilled labor to be taken off and just replaced by robots, and potentially in high-level economies, you can start manufacturing again. You don't need to ship it to China. You can still do it in the US with the aid of that. So that will cost quite a few jobs.
Paul, you got opinion on this?
Yeah, I think it's very exciting, and it's also scary where we're going. By 2029, robots will have reached human levels of intelligence, but they will have the ability to process information at trillions of times faster. So imagine something with human intelligence, but with all the data of the world loaded into their memory. And that's why we talk about robotics, but you have to tie it to artificial intelligence, which is where it gets really interesting. The figure I had was 30% of jobs will be replaced by robotics technology by 2025. Now, whether they will be or not, they could be. That's the point. And I think it's really about artificial intelligence. So today, America flies drones from Nellis Air Force Base and Florida to launch air attacks in the Middle East. Doctors sitting at Cleveland Clinic do robotic surgery on patients on the other side of the world, right? And some types of surgeries are already being done by the computers without doctors because they're more precise. So we're already moving there. And 3D manufacturing is a whole nother issue, right? But I'll bring it up because in February, Amazon patented 3D manufacturing of trucks. And they're already doing test modeling. So these trucks will not go to a warehouse to load product. They will go to a facility to load chemicals. And as they're driving on their delivery runs, they will print the products. Now, these trucks are already built, and they're already testing them, and it's already patented. So this isn't theory, it's already real. So they'll literally figure it takes 2 minutes per item, and the delivery is 20 minutes away. How many items will they print while they're driving? So is that going to affect warehousing? I think so. The challenge we have is how to use technology so one warehouse worker can do the work of 5 or 10 to deal with the labor shortage that you mentioned. So I think this is a trend that's going to move much faster than anyone anticipates. It's going to be really bold and drastic. We need to train people both in our industry and at universities for the jobs that don't exist, but they need to be adaptable enough for what we still can't define. Every job is going to have to be redesigned because of technology, so we need to teach skills that are evolvable rather than predictable. And I think robotics will move very fast. There are 800 million unemployed people in the world today. Of course, a lot in the developing world, but now in the developing world, that's where we have our challenge. So in Singapore, we're going to use technology to deal with labor shortages. But what in countries that don't have labor shortages? So we need to change the way we think, the way we plan businesses, the way we train people, and the way we evolve careers, because this will have a radical effect across every industry, in my view.
Yeah, so actually that leads to the next question, really, is that if they are displacing these workers and it's already displacing them, where are the workers going? Are we going to face a lot of social disorder? Foxconn, Terry Goh talked about investing in robots like 30,000 to 100,000 every month, every year displacing 1 million Chinese workers. So if really that's going to go on, what's going to happen? Where are the workers going to go? Where are the new jobs coming from? Or we don't have to work, the robot works and then pay us, right? Would that be nice? Where are the workers going? Anyone? Come.
Well, it's a very good question, and I don't know if we can read the future, but
Oh, you are the search firm, you are the headhunter, right? So you must have jobs for them.
I know where some of them are going because I'm placing them, but other than that, I'm not so sure. But also just not to take the wholly apocalyptical view on things. If we had to think a little bit about the industries, let's just take the internet, for example, right? When the internet came about, a lot of jobs were lost as well, but back then, maybe we didn't think of all the jobs that would be created. You wouldn't have thought that, SEO optimizer or mobile app programmer would come about. But these jobs exist, and they're plentiful right now. So definitely the difference which I foresee is that the speed in which these changes will occur will be much greater. Some of these people will be able to obviously be trained. Somebody needs to look into the robots. They need to know how to do the automation. They need to do the repair, the servicing. All of these are still jobs within the industry that the industry will create, but they are much, much less than the total amount of jobs that will be lost. We saw even in the video, there was an argument. The person was saying that jobs that require a lot of human touches will be more in demand or more required. So possibly that's an area that will occur. But really, I'm not sure we can say for all the people that will lose their jobs, what will happen. Also, the governments need to think very deeply about this because it's going to raise social issues. So they need to be planning as much as possible. I guess myself, I don't have a clear answer to that, but I'm sure that problems are made to be solved. So we're going to have to think of different ways of doing things to accommodate that.
No, that guy was standing in front of a motel. Right? He was saying that the human touch job, the connotation is bad.
Just to add to that, I'm an optimist. I always think technology improves our lives. You know, in 10 years, we're going to print a human heart, and it won't be rejected by your body. They're already working on this. In 10 years, we'll print a human heart, and the body won't reject it because it'll be made from your own cells. So technology is going to improve our lives, but it's going to change the way we work. It's going to give more leisure time, partially, but during that leisure time, you're going to need to grow your knowledge, educate more so you can shift and adapt, right? So the way we do education will change, but I think you're going to see one worker doing the work of 4 or 5 or 10, and therefore robotics becomes a tool. When we go from 7 to 9 billion people in the world, you know, having workers not displaced, but their power of what they can do increases exponentially because of robotics. And then some that won't fit will have to redesign career paths. But I think technology transforms our lives for the better, but we have to prepare for it rather than let it hit and then react.
I also think that organizations, you know, as Paul was saying, very much need to look at, you know, how they're going to prepare, but also how they're going to restructure themselves to take into account the changes in technology that they're now bringing onto the shop floor. And, you know, when you're looking at organizations that are, you know, going to invest in artificial intelligence, then equally, you know, they need to start investing in cybersecurity. There are a number of other functions that, you know, are created as a result of that, you know, and we're seeing traditional manufacturing organizations now, you know, bringing in chief security officers in terms of looking at cybersecurity because it's becoming such an issue for them. So, you know, as a result of this, you know, organizations need to think about themselves in a new way. They need to look at their structures in a new way, and the leadership need to really adapt to that. And we're going to see more adaptive leadership coming through. You know, as younger generation come through, they will have been taught in a more adaptive way to evolve their learning into new situations, and I think that that's critical for organizations to bring on board as well.
We often think of, you know, when technology replaces a human on certain tasks, and then the human have no choice, and you have to upgrade yourself and move on to a different kind of job function. But actually, if you look at some of the examples, for example, SingPost. You can imagine over the years, you know, maybe 20 years from now, maybe we don't really have a need to deliver letters. I mean, nobody will write letters anymore. So the hard copy letters will, you know, will disappear gradually in the future. But what happens is that Singtel actually invests a lot on e-commerce on the other hand. So because of that, they actually need a lot of manpower to do the delivery, to do the distributions. So on one hand, you are losing, you know, human is losing this job to technology, or maybe because of demand is shrinking. But at the same time, I think there are others opportunity emerging, and the skills needed for, you know, to cope that kind of needs is not necessarily much more complicated than their old job. So sometimes it depends. I think it's not necessarily that, you know, the human will need to upgrade their skills significantly to move on. Yeah.
I agree about the displacement at the unskilled level and the monotonous task, you know, that nobody want to work on. But I want to go one level because most of us here are either mid or senior level executives. And the AI or robotics automation revolution that's happening is not just hitting the mid and low level. Most of us are actually not educated about this. We were never trained, right? And it's happening to us. The young ones comes in, they create startups, and they raise 200 million. I live for the last 25 years. I work like hell. I can't even raise 20 million, or not even 200,000. So the displacement is not just the lower level. The displacement is our level, your level. I don't work, so your level. So you guys will be out of job. You guys are going to be out of job because you don't understand. You don't even know that they are more intelligent than us, they crunch numbers faster than us. I call them they, I don't even call them it. They're self-aware, they're self-learning, you know. That's what Arnold Schwarzenegger said, right, in Terminator, self-aware. I don't know, it was September 1997 or something like that. So, is the displacement at this level as well? You are the C1, C2. Are you displacing the CEOs who don't understand about automation?
Organizations need to look at themselves and look at their position within the market. And that will have an impact on the senior management and the entire organization if they're not keeping track of or not on trend in terms of where their market's moving and they fall behind. But leaders should have the ability to adapt, and they should always be looking at how their industry is moving on, and they need to adapt to that. So yes, there'll be younger generation coming through, they'll be raising money, they'll be starting up great organizations, there's no doubt about it, but that has always happened. It's become faster, but it's always happened. And yet there are still those older organizations that have been around for a century, and yet they've continued to adapt, they've continued to have mature leadership in them, and they continue to have a place in society. So it has an impact for sure, but it has an impact on those who don't evolve, both from a personal perspective and from an organizational perspective, and get left behind. And that's always been the same throughout history.
You guys agree? Leaders adapt. I should think that some leaders adapt, that's why they became so well paid. Some don't, and that's why they went somewhere else.
For sure. I mean, if you are a C-level or senior management in an organization, you have no choice, because the world is moving so fast. If you're not adapting, very soon you will find out on your P&L that somebody else has adapted. But the question also becomes, how do you manage to have a trigger effect in your team and the people reporting to you and so forth, and also what's our individual responsibility, because we can no longer go, you get a degree, you get an education in a specific skill set and expect that you will do the same job for years to go. You need to constantly upgrade yourself, you need to constantly learn, you need to constantly get new skills. If you look at the, sometimes if you use LinkedIn, you will see this kind of funny notes that the gist of it is that the current jobs and the current job postings pretty much require a PhD degree with the experience of running a P&L, and they expect it out of a 25-year-old. So it's becoming a little bit like that. Even for senior searches and for senior placements, before it used to be a lot about management skills, managing P&Ls, your track record in that. But now it's becoming also maybe you have an international career, you have done, and you have started businesses from zero to you have a track record in starting and growing businesses, then an area of specialization, and then plus. So it's becoming more and more complex. The skills that are required are more and more diverse. So we just need to adapt and accept that and take it as a lifelong learning that we need to embark on as individuals, not just senior leaders.
I think it's more than that even, because let's go back. My dad worked for a company for 35 years. Today, the average person changes jobs 7 to 8 times in their career. In the future, it'll be more than 20 times in their career. So it means you have to get used to dynamic shifting of jobs. The CEO today has certain skills, but now they have to empower more, they have to keep up with technology more, and what's rare is you need CEOs who are going to accept reverse mentoring. They're going to need the new young people that they hire to teach them about technology. Now, this is done in some companies, but very few. And reverse mentoring is going to be critical for CEOs to know what's really happening with technology and what are the latest ways of communicating. We don't communicate through magazines anymore, TV ads. We do it through social media. So it's a complete different way that you do advertising, as an example. In our industry, freight forwarding will be disintermediated. Letters of credits from banks should have been disintermediated 10 years ago. They will in the next 5 to 10 years. So as a CEO in our industry, right now people will say, fill this job with someone who can protect the business and keep it growing comfortably. We're going to have to develop a different type of leadership which knows the industry but can see the future, where the technology is going, how capital flows are evolving, how to leverage new methodologies of social media, and they're going to have to continuously redesign and restructure their company to make sure it's evolving and adapting with all these amazing, exciting changes transforming around us with AI and robotics. But by tradition, we're going to have a lot of traditional leaders, and then the shock effects will hit as technology moves faster. So I think those CEOs who don't embrace these trends and change the way they learn will be at risk. And that's why all of us have to go back to school every 5 years and learn, because otherwise we fall behind and we lose our value as well.
Sounds very good for you, Prof. Lim. Do they really go to school? Have you taught some of these guys?
That was coordinated.
Yeah. In fact, I always have some
In fact, you've never seen them in school, right?
Yeah. I always have some reservation about this artificial intelligence, robotics, what kind of job they can do. In fact, you think about some simple example. Can I have a show of hand? How many of you have been frustrated when you call a call center? When you call a call center, you have a very bad experience. So do I. Yeah, exactly. They route you here and there. At the end, every time when I call, I would look for the human. I look for the personnel to talk to immediately. Rather than going through all these automatic routes. So you can, from this small example, you can tell, right? For instance, the flexibility that you have to build into this program, into the robots, is sometimes can be so challenging that you can never cover all kind of situations, all kind of options. So as a result, at the end, you still prefer to do it in a human way. And everybody here is in logistics, and I can give you an example. For example, how many of you are doing peace speaking in your warehouse? You have you deal with peace speaking or each picking in a warehouse.
You say how many of you are not, right?
How many of you are doing peace speaking?
No, just say I'm not. Then they notice that means all is doing.
I see. So if you look at peace speaking, pretty much even in US, they are still doing it in a manual way. Why? Because it's so difficult to automate. Because of the shape, because of the the weight of the item, because of the size and so on, it's just too much to to program this into the robot. So as a result, they still pretty much are doing it in a manual way for piece picking. But if you look at case picking, they have very good conveyor, they have very good sorters, and doing in a very fanciful way. But for piece picking, you can never automate because it's so the variety is just too much. Recently, I think KK Hospital, they just came out with the first drug picking machines. Even that, they can only do it for bottled drugs, which means the drug has to be kept inside a standardized bottle, and there you can use robots to help to pick. Otherwise, even for those irregular shapes of drugs, irregular package, you cannot do it using robots. So there's always a limit for for robots and this artificial intelligence.
That's why we have ISO, right? One day we'll standardize how everything looks like so that the robots know what to do, right? I need you guys to work with me a few years forward, right? This is definitely happening. Like automation and the use of robotics will displace work. So we are going from a labor-intensive, we have been from a labor-intensive industry, if we're talking about our sector now, right? Logistics and supply chain. From very labor-intensive to now, in the future, going to be very labor-light. What's going to impact our industry? What are the disruptions that we should be looking at like now? We are moving, we are definitely moving. So someone was telling me about this last time. They says that I used to have many forklift drivers, so I bought many forklifts. Today I don't have many forklift drivers, but I still have many forklifts. So I have 2 forklift drivers and 10 forklifts, and then it's redundant. But I don't get rid of my forklift. My forklift lasts for 10 years. So I'm going from really labor-intensive, labor-light. So this is one of the impact. I got machines that is really idling. What else do you guys see? What are the disruptions?
I think one trend, especially with population density, you see it in China, we see it in Singapore, Hong Kong, more and more cities. Land becomes very expensive. And the time of movement becomes critical, right, in the supply chain. I think we're going to see vertically integrated infrastructure above and below ground, which will force multiple manufacturers and multiple logistics companies into one integrated building. And that will be required to stay competitive and to use urban space effectively, but it will force those companies to collaborate technologically. So now you have all different independent factories and you're shipping things and you have that time space. It's all going to have to converge. And I can't allude why, but I know there are already studies in this space going on. So it's already being planned by several countries. The bottom line is we're going to move factories closer together. We're going to move logistics support entities and value-added services closer together. And we're going to force technological integration between them. And Internet of Things will play a role in that also. So that will create a much more efficient manufacturing and distribution process, including making products and printing products all within integrated infrastructure. But that's going to change the way you work with your competitors. It's going to, again, change the way, do I have a giant warehouse with a lot of space, or do I have to learn to redesign the whole way I use space to do my job? I think this is coming within 10 years.
Interesting. What other disruptions do you guys see? Labor intensive to labor light?
Yeah, and just to build upon what Paul was saying, I think we're also going to see a lot more localization of manufacturing, decentralization and localization of manufacturing. You no longer need to produce in China, or you no longer need to produce in Southeast Asia or wherever. You can produce it actually in US or in Europe. If you have robots to help you and you can manage it effectively, 3D printing will enable a new revolution in many, many different ways. You can also do that. So that will obviously be a disruption in the way that supply chains, even trading is done, even shipping of products, movement of goods from one place to another. You will not necessarily need to. Right now, it's coming from Asia to the different parts of the world. It's a high volume, but that will change and will I don't know if it's going to be 10 years, 20 years down the line, but it will be affected for sure. So these are some of the things to consider. Of course, again, it's good, right? The fact that we don't have to work so hard is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, we all have a washing machine in our house, right? It's better than washing the clothes by hand. You have a vacuum cleaner. It's better than than doing it manually. So I guess it's also a matter of how do we best use technology and work with it to become more productive and to make our lives easier. And I think overall, people will work less, will have to do less total hours of work, but maybe the quality of work will be different. It's going to be more creative work. It's going to be more, the human touch type of work, not the repetitive work.
I just needed to add one thing, sorry, because I left this out. If any of you have been to Disneyland or Disney World, you've seen the what do you call it, the 3D animation. Yeah. No, where you can see the person and walk around them.
Hologram, right?
Right, the hologram. So basically, the technology is down to $20,000. So if you're doing a video call, like in the old Star Wars movies, right? The new one's coming out later this year, I think. But if you want to do a video call, for $20,000, you can actually see the other person on the phone with a hologram. That cost was a few $100,000. It's down to 20. When it's down to 500, we'll all have them in our house. Now imagine that you have a hologram of yourself. And when you do online shopping, you can actually try the clothes on the hologram in front of you exactly fitted to your size. So you can see what you like on your own hologram in your house. And then when you press a button to order, sometimes it will come to you, rapid delivery. Amazon's now doing 3 to 4 hour deliveries in some US cities. And Rocket Uncle here, right? Let's give credit to some of our sponsors. But imagine some of those items you will just print in your house. So some items will be delivered the same day or the next morning, and some items you'll actually print and it'll appear in your house. This technology already exists. It's just a question of getting the cost down to scale. Now, that's really exciting in terms of quality of life and instant gratification. But again, that is going to change our industry selectively. This technology will start to roll out in the next few years. I think in 10 to 12 years, you'll start to see it deployed quite rapidly. So it's not sci-fi anymore.
Disruptions?
I'm not sure whether this can be considered as disruption. I think in the recent trend, what I can see is we start to see a stronger integration between retail and distributions. I mean, for example, Amazon, traditionally they're doing retailing, but now they become a service provider, logistics service provider. On the other hand, you see companies like Sun Feng. They originally started as a logistic company, but now they also start selling stuff through their little shops in China. So because of that, you can see the business is actually changing in some sense, and competition is everywhere. In the sense that in the past, your service provider may become a competitor now. So I think certainly there are a lot of overlapping, a lot of new opportunity as well to emerging. So these are some of the things that is coming up. Yeah, it's already happening.
You talk about Sun Feng, I thought about Singapore Post. So you go to post office now, it's like going to a retail shop, right? They sell you everything, not stamps anymore. Yuan, you got?
I was just going to say that, I mean, as you look at logistics, you look at Amazon, obviously, when it's doing its 3D printing in its trucks, but sooner than that, they've got the drones flying around everywhere. And I think that organizations obviously have a lot to look at from a security perspective as well. A disruption of supply chain, disruption of manufacturing. We've seen it in the automotive industry with the cars being hacked because now they've got such technology that they can be controlled remotely. And I think that this is something that organizations will adapt to without a shadow of a doubt, but it still raises big concerns about, if there was a drone and it was to crash into, a crowded place, then that's going to cause major issues for that organization to deal with. And it's a very real issue as well, or there's a high probability of it. So, looking at disruptions, there are positive disruptions, but there are also negative disruptions that we need to look at as well.
Yeah, sounds like it. I do not see, or like all the observation we made so far is that the governments, the politics do not let disruptions like this lead to social chaos they can't afford. So they may slow down, or they may not. So I got one last question before I open up. So then the question really goes this way. Someone once commented and says that our machines, this is very scary because I watch a lot of movies, right? Our machines will become fully aware in 40 years' time. I'm like, what do you mean by our machines become fully aware? Basically, they become like us. If a machine become like us, if I'm the machine, I'll replace us because I won't die, you die, right? So do you guys agree with such sentences that we will reach a point whereby the machines is cleverer than us, do better things than us, then what are we for?
The scary thing is that machines won't have emotions or feelings, right? You can't give a machine that, at least not in the next while that we can think of. But the machines are going to be smarter than us because they have access to all the data in the world in their memory. They can process that information dramatically faster than we can. So that's just a reality, and it's coming starting in the next 10 years. Now, they don't have feelings, they don't have emotions. That's good and it's bad because it means they just process data and logic, and we know that human intuition is a gift, and it allows us to empathize and care, and as leaders to care about people and to motivate and inspire, and all that will be missing with pure data. But that data will become very powerful. Now, I'm always an optimist, so I'm focusing on my hero, Elon Musk, who created the Tesla. I drove one last year, and the car talks to you. It's just a magnificent earthbound rocket ship. He built Solar City, the new $8 billion battery factory. He's docked with the space station 3 times with his company and evolving faster. The U.S. will land on Mars in 2030 and start building a colony. So these are all things to be optimistic about. But to your point, Paul, what's interesting is Bill Gates, Stephen Hawking, and Elon Musk a few months ago all signed a document that they think in the next 100 years, artificial intelligence will be the greatest risk to humanity, followed by nuclear war, followed by global warming, in that order. Because they feel that the speed of our breakout with artificial technology is moving much faster than we thought 10 or 20 years ago. And in about another 20 years, it's actually going to start building itself like a sci-fi movie, and it will be much harder to control. Now, we laugh about this, but actually it's moving so fast, if we don't find ways of controlling it, when you look at Internet of Everything, you find that all these pieces start talking to each other without human intervention. So I thought it was interesting that some of the top thought leaders and business leaders in the world are actually starting to worry about being too successful. I'm an optimist, so I'm more interested in how we go to Mars and build colonies. But it's still something to realize. Without emotions, without feelings, it's amazing, and it's also a bit scary.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that even though they've signed this paper, does it stop them from actually continuing to develop the artificial intelligence that is going to lead to that? Probably not, but it's an interesting thought.
But, I mean, just to add on that, I guess where they will have to stop is that if you outsource everybody, then who's going to buy who's going to actually buy the products anymore? There's going to come, I mean, of course, we're kind of going into sci-fi right now, but at some point, also this will lead to huge disparities in terms of economics. I mean, the greatest risk is towards the low-skilled jobs. I mean, those people, if it really goes to that catastrophic view and taking the pessimistic view, I mean, what are they going to do? The rich are going to keep getting richer, the poor are going to keep getting poorer. At some point, there's going to be all sorts of issues. We're going to end up in that situation way before this, 40 years
so
of...
You almost need a governing policy to globally agree on how to build the technology, but how to keep
some
it
frameworks.
Under control. Absolutely.
Yeah. And governments needs to be voted, right? You're going to have voting tomorrow, so robots won't vote for them for now. So at some point,
I'm going to do a spoil vote. No, I'm kidding.
We already see this in our life. I mean, think about computer virus. To a certain extent, it's self-reproducing and replicating, spreading. So now we are just bringing it to the next level where the robots, they can reproduce physically. So that, to me, is not impossible. I think it's quite doable. Yeah. So I think just like controlling computer virus, I think we need to have new kind of a regulation and mechanism to cope with that. I think.
Yeah. You got a comment? Any comment?
No.
I have a thought behind this, and my thought is to make myself the superhuman, so I put the machine into me. I mean, why do I let the machine be on its own? So now I'm man-machine with lots of intelligence, right? So I'm the Superman. Iron Man. I'm just having fun. Okay, any question? Are you tired there? I'm tired, but so... Oh, okay. There's one there. Yeah, mic runner. I work only when the... There. Is that Jake? Oh, from Hitachi. Okay. Hitachi got new technology.
Okay, my name is Jake from Hitachi Asia. I'm from a manufacturing company. And then today, through some discussion, I found that technologies anyway having the much improvement. And when I'm thinking about natural disasters, I think many Japanese companies encountered March 11th big earthquake. And then if some manufacturing process changing to the automated, but we still need a contingency plan, because if the energy out, if the manufacturing line or everything is shut down, then probably we need another robot, for example, another place, without any natural disaster. So my concern, if anything process into such automated, but we still need to have a contingency plan, how we can keep a BCP. And also quality control. And manufacturing is eventually back to the quality level we have to maintain. Then how we can keep such quality, and we need to avoid a much loss cost also. So, from the manufacturing sector, this is my kind of concern for such robotics issues. Thank you.
So the energy part, I mean, he's talk about energy, then talk about machines breakdown, and then we need a contingency plan, and then quality control. I would like to think that robots control quality better than us, right?
Japanese quality, we all know it's superb. But the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything means that the machines are already studying the stress points on parts and equipment, and they're already predicting when they will weaken and rupture, but we can't see that with the human eye, and then they literally will flag it in the dashboard so that you already know to replace the part. So I think that's a case where the Internet of Things is really fantastic. I was at the Caterpillar factory in China a few months ago, which is a superb operation, and we were discussing how the Internet of Things is starting to predict. different parts, and they wouldn't know until 6 months or a year later, but the technology is actually already identifying for them so that they can do preemptive action. So I think that's a very positive step in how technology enhances beyond humans predictive solutions.
Any of you have
quality control.
Any comments? No? Any other questions? No, no can end early. I don't think they hear that. I said no means can end early. Okay, so really, just summarize, right? Last part. Are we doomed? Are we? I mean, your thoughts? Just to summarize, are we doomed?
I would much more rather be optimistic, like Paul. You know, this creates massive opportunities. It creates massive opportunities for all of us across all industries. And, you know, it will create jobs. People will lose jobs as well. And that's inevitable. And it's, you know, inevitable given, you know, economic circumstances, let alone changes in technology. But, you know, I think that the future is very bright. And, you know, the opportunities that will be created as a result of technology, you know, as a result of more efficient supply chains driven by that, is absolutely massive. And, you know, those that are able to adapt, you know, whether they be CEOs at the moment or whether they be, you know, in university at the moment, they're the ones that are going to survive. And that's always been the case because there has always been the need to adapt. And those that do it best end up succeeding.
So we got optimism here. Professor?
I still want to come back to my point about this flexibility of the task. You know, when you are dealing with a lot of varieties, a lot of different options and possibility, it's really, really hard to program it, you know, in a computer. So, I mean, you talk to any computer scientist or any programmer, they will tell you, you know, it's impossible to make this automate. So if you want to have, you know, automated robots who can reproduce themselves to handle complex stuff, I don't think that's easy to do. I don't think this can happen in the foreseeable future. For simple tasks, yes, maybe repetitive tasks, yes, but not for those highly complex stuff.
Okay, so I summarize for you, we are not doomed, but our children's doomed.
Your children. I would say that we are doomed, but we are doomed to learn, unlearn, and relearn faster. I think that's the only skill set. I mean, it's beyond, you know, what what we are doing currently today. It's being able to be flexible and adapt yourself and keep learning and keep up with, you know, with technology and all the different improvements that will happen, and use it in your advantage. Be man with machine, not man against machine. Just like before, we had, you know, a man with a laptop is more effective than a man without a laptop. Maybe in the future it's going to be a man with technology, with a robot, or with automation processes will be more effective than without. Of course, again, the conference is great, the topic is great. I think some of the panelists before have brought up this reality check. We are thinking way ahead of ourselves also. There's a reality, even if we talk about executive search, about recruitment, still most companies, for what is what, they're still looking for, you know, very clear skill sets to fit a certain hole. You know, they're looking for certain people that have done exactly the same or similar jobs to fit the current jobs. So, but we have also seen companies that are more advanced in terms of, okay, let's look at the market. Let's map where are these people and where's the right mindset. Let's look without the, you know, outside of the industry, into consulting firms, into connected domains to look for talent in the future. So there are steps ahead, but what I mean to say is this will not happen overnight. This will not happen, there's a practicality. The cost of all the different disruptions is quite high at the moment. It's going to go lower, but it's also not going to happen tomorrow. However, yes, we are doomed, to bring it to a conclusion, we are doomed to learn faster and to relearn faster and to keep ourselves relevant and to keep adapting ourselves.
Aman will like you, Skills Future.
All human knowledge used to double every 1,000 years, then every 100 years. Today, all the available knowledge doubles every 3 to 4 years. So, to me, I'm an optimist. I think the more knowledge we have available, the faster we cure diseases, the more we improve our quality of life, the comfort of our lives, the ability of different cultures to interact. So I think the fact that all knowledge is doubling every couple of years now, and all this technology is going to be driving it, I think as long as we provide a bit of human emotion and compassion into the technical solutions, it's going to make for a better world. But the most dangerous place to be is in the comfort zone. And that's where most people are. And they say, oh yeah, but this stuff is going to be 30, 40 years away. It's not. If you've had access to information like some of us have in different countries, you know that this stuff is already out there. There's a place in the Nevada test site where the government has micro insects that actually fly. They're robotic, by the way, and they actually fly with cameras, and they're already out there. There's a grain of sand that you can touch someone and you can track them the rest of their lives with just shaking their hand. There's a lot of this technology which isn't out there, but it's there. And I'm an optimist, but I think in our industry, let's go back, because this is a supply chain conference. We all need to know shipping and freight forwarding and warehousing. These are the tools myself and everyone else, we all learned hands-on so we could evolve. But like the students you had me talk to yesterday, they say, well, what shall I do with logistics? How do I make it an exciting career? And my answer is, if that's your career, you're in trouble. Because you should be learning how to be a leader in dynamic value networks. Supply chain management is already old. Demand chain management is already old. It's about dynamic value networks. It's about fixed and virtual assets. So we need to learn the traditional forwarding, shipping, warehousing, but everyone out there needs to start seeing that our entire industry is already changing. You can already see how iTunes is actually a supply chain, and they have 300,000 virtual programmers, and they get 30% for anyone who accesses their infrastructure, right? Fong, 22,000 virtual factories in 58 countries, but this is the new economy. So we all learn the basics at university, but my challenge to the schools is you need to be less practical, and you need to start preparing for us those who can think about value chains, technology integration, and as long as we're training people for that future, then this technology will be to our advantage. So I'm going to leave on an optimistic note.
Thank you. So for that, we conclude this session. Can we thank the four gentlemen? Thank you, guys. You need a break? You want to continue? Huh?